let's talk a little bit about unprocessed trauma. So you talk about emotional isolation as being something that really negatively nurtures unprocessed trauma.
So once you're hurt as a child, you tend not to trust other people. So you could be in the middle of a crowd and be laughing and interacting, but still feel quite alone emotionally. Maybe you've had that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that emotional isolation itself then has effects on your body and on your mind. So the people who are lonely, and the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Admiral Vivek Murthy, just issued a paper on loneliness in the United States. And loneliness, and there's an epidemic of loneliness. People are describing themselves as lonely in much higher numbers as they did 20, 40 years ago. No, loneliness is as much of a risk factor for physiological illness as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Really?
Yeah. So loneliness is both a manifestation of trauma and a cause of tremendous stress, which then undermines physiological and mental health.
Okay, say that to me one more time.
So loneliness is both an outcome of trauma.
So it's an outcome of trauma. So something traumatic happened, it wasn't processed properly, and then now you will feel lonely.
You will feel lonely. You will isolate. Because look, if I am always being a nice guy so that you will like me, but inside I'm feeling all these emotions that I'm not sharing with you, that's pretty lonely. Even though you might like me because I'm showing you this nice side of myself.
Right, that's not really me.
That's not me.
What is it about not being emotionally isolated that allows one to process a trauma?
Yeah. So I did a day-long event here in LA just the day before we were recording this. And I worked with a woman called Kimberly Shannon Murphy, who is one of Hollywood's top stunt women. She just got a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Nice, congratulations, Kim.
And she worked with Cameron Diaz and Uma Thurman and Tom Cruise and all these people.
A lot of hotties.
No, she was sexually abused by her grandfather all throughout her childhood and adolescence. And of course, the family was in denial. Nobody noticed it. If they noticed it, they kept silent about it. She was totally alone with it. So that's what induced the wound. And had she been able to talk to somebody and say, this is happening to me, please help me, she would not have been traumatized. So the trauma happens when a child suffers and has nobody to share that suffering with, whether it's the extreme suffering or sexual abuse, or the milder, you might say, suffering of just not being seen for who you are. If you're alone with it, you can't process it. So what happens later on, to answer your question, when you meet somebody where you feel safe, and now you can express what's happening with you, that's what helps to process the trauma.
Got it.
So it requires compassion and safety. And ideally, I mean, I criticize the 12-step groups, not for what they do, because I love what they do, for what they don't do. I don't think they talk about trauma enough. That's my view. But a 12-step group that's properly run will offer you support and safety. So now you can share yourself and be seen by others.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten even into like the intimacy disorder groups, and those are a lot more potent with people talking about their emotional disorders and like traumas and things that happen. And it's not a crybaby group either. Like sometimes we talk about trauma, but I don't talk about it from like a crybaby place.
No.
I like to talk about it from like, this is important, and it's important to learn about, and I like to share what I learn about from it,
It's not about people victimizing themselves or trying to present themselves as victims.
Yeah.
It's saying, this is what happened to me, and it's my responsibility to learn from it.
That's the truth.
And it's my responsibility to grow from it, not to wallow in, oh, look what happened to me and I can't help it. That's nonsense.
Oh, I'll tell you this, Mr. Maté, that a thing I realized I was addicted to a few years ago, self-pity.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it. I kept always thinking, man, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
I have to fix this. Every day nothing was enough. And then I realized that even though it seemed like I was trying to make myself better, the truth was that I was always seeing myself as less than.
Yeah.
Because those things have to both be present at the same time. Because I can only get better if, I'm never enough.
Well,
and by never being enough, though, I'm trying to figure this out.
Well,
I got addicted to self-pity. I got addicted to like.
Can I jump in with a thought?
Yes, please. Thank you. Dear God, please.
It did something for you. It took away responsibility from you. Now, human beings have a hard time taking responsibility. I mean, I have a hard time taking responsibility. We all have a hard time taking responsibility. So when you're in that self-pity mode, you're suffering, but you don't have to take responsibility. I'm suggesting that's what it did for you.
Yeah, I think, maybe there was a part of me that wanted to keep it around because it always let there be something wrong with me too.
That's right.
If I never solve this, if I'm never enough, then there'll always be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It makes sense because again, it takes away the challenge of growth.
Right.
I mean, we talk about growing pains. Growth is painful.
Oh yeah, people go from 7 inches to 7 feet, so 6.5, 6'1" or whatever.
Yeah, and emotional growth is also painful. And so when we don't grow, at least we avoid the growing pains.
Right.